What's going on, Tamers? It's me, Digimon player and Talking Head East, and BT14's Blaster Ace has finally released over here in Japan, and we got our first week of results. The cards released in the set, including the new Ace cards, help to create a bunch of new archetypes that the game has never seen before, but also buffs a lot of the older decks quite a bit. As we look at our first week's results, keep in mind that the Evolution Cups in Japan over here are happening right now, and for that reason, some people are keeping their decks a little bit close to their chest. Some of the lists that I found, they'd only show off like the key cards for the deck and not the entire list, but we did find a couple of them. That being said, let's take a look at some of the tournament results, a couple of key takeaways, as well as a close look at some of those decks that topped over the course of the week. So here are our first week's results, and I think the one big takeaway from looking at this list is that right now the field is wide open. Standing at the top here is going to be ShineGreymon as well as Greymon in general. Now ShineGreymon is mostly unchanged, however, some people have been experimenting with the vaccine cards, things like the new Patamon, the new Messenger of Hope option card, and we'll take a closer look at one of those decks a little bit later. Agumon of course received support in this set as well with the new Super Rare Agumon card as well as the Secret Rare War Greymon card, and I think that people are like just testing those out right now to see if they even fit in the older War Greymon decks, or if there's a new archetype out there as well. And as we drop below those, we see decks that are brand new to the set, as well as a mix of older decks that receive buffs from the cards in Blast Ace as well. Things like D-Brigade, Fenriloogamon is very strong. Vaccine Yellow, I'm not really sure how to categorize this one, because I think the top end is a little bit different for most of the list, but the bottom end is pretty much set. I mean, the Patamon engine as well as Messenger of Hope are very powerful cards to get free Digivolves, or very cheap Digivolves in this case, and so I'm going to kind of group them together for now. If there's like a split or a breakaway as far as archetypes are concerned, I'll do that in the future, but for now just keep in mind that this yellow vaccine list kind of houses a lot of different decks. There's also decks I didn't expect to see here. I think with the updated restriction list, I would not have expected to see BloomQuarts or Beelzemon doing well right now, but that's not been the case. That, in addition to the new Zudomon and Gomamon cards, have really helped the Blue Flare as well as Mirage Galgamon decks get a little bit stronger. And then as we drop down to the rookie level here, we see decks that have either received a little bit of support from the set or are still able to keep up with some of the decks running around right now. Decks like Mastamon, Alphamon, Chaosdramon, which has seen a lot of little bit of support over the past few releases, things like the starter deck, the promo cards, as well as Blast Ace, have all helped to boost the power of this deck. Hunters is still out there as well, Royal Knights. This right here, I'm probably going to change the image for it because it's too similar to Mastamon, but it's supposed to represent security control. Some of the new yellow vaccine cards slot in really well to get really cheap Digivolves for really expensive Digimon that have really good effects for yellow and purple. And so I put it as this, but again, I'm probably going to change this next week. I talked about how Blue Flare and Mirage Galgamon both saw increases in power thanks to the new Gomamon and Zudomon Ace cards, and honestly, Ulforce Digimon is right there eating alongside them. People have started using Zudomon Ace's cheap cost as well as strong ability to get rid of pesky Digimon on board to go into their Ulforce Digimon. There's just a couple decks rounding out the bottom of this list here, going to things like Crossheart, Dark Imperial Dramon, which saw a buff because of the new promo box topper for this set, which I think included, was it a new Shadramon, I believe it was? As well as Diabotomon, which received the new Diabotomon Ace card to everybody's surprise. This deck got a little bit of support here. Jessamon does decently well in this set just because it has the ability to go wide with decks like D-Brigade, Fenriloogamon, and BloomQuarts, but it also has really good defensive power with the Gankumon X antibody, preventing your opponent from returning cards to either your hand or your deck, and that basically puts a stop to the Zudomon Ace card as well as Mirage Galgamon, so maybe a sleeper pick for this set. So like I said, yeah, we're really all over the place right now. Lots of decks doing well, lots of different decks running around, lots of different ideas being tried out. So it'll be interesting to see in these next couple weeks where the cards fall. Taking a closer look at some of the decks, the first one we're going to see here is going to be ShineGreymon. I mentioned before that ShineGreymon has been mostly unchanged. I think most players are still running the red base that the deck has seen in the past. However, some players are experimenting with some of the yellow vaccine cards, and we see that list here. A little bit tight, I guess they didn't have a lot of room to take the picture, unfortunately, but we see 3 copies of the new Patamon, as well as 4 copies of the new Messenger of Hope. Again, just using these cards to quickly and cheaply Digivolve through your security to some of those bigger Digimon for essentially 0 cost. And the cheap evo cost of these cards, combined with things like the Marcus Tamer here that already lets you essentially Digivolve into anything for 1 cost, makes the deck very quick and very memory efficient. We also see 2 copies of the new TK Tamer here, and it's because this deck does have the ability to recover. Keep in mind that the Rise Greymon level 5s had the ability to put a Marcus Tamer on top of your security whenever it's destroyed on the board once per turn, and so he's going to gain memory off of that as well. I think if I were to tweak this deck just a little bit, I would maybe swap out this one Yugioh Greymon for maybe the new Angemon Secret Rare for the set, and also I would probably take out the older ShineGreymons here and probably put in one more of the newer BT13 ShineGreymons, as well as one more of the Blast mode, or maybe just 2 Blast modes in general. I will say the one pain point for this deck is that the level 2s are all Shadowverse and not Kodomons. That means that all of your level 3s, or most of your level 3s with the exception of the Patamon here, are going to be 1-cost Digivolves. So you could expect the lower end of this deck to be a little bit slower, but once you get past that level 3, you're going to have really fast and cheap Digivolves off of things like the Marcus Tamer here, the Messenger of Hope, as well as the Patamon effect. Katamon is good because it gives you jamming. However, there is a yellow Kodomon out there that you could use for this deck. So if you want to swap in the Kodomons instead just to get the 0 cost for your Agumons, that's also a really good idea. The next list we're going to take a look at is going to be Fenriloogamon, one of the new archetypes introduced in Blast Ace. And for folks who don't know, this deck focuses on the Dark Animal archetype for the deck, as well as the new Sons of Chaos archetype also introduced. Most of the lists that I've seen, even the one that I built, was focused on discarding cards because the level 2 for this deck allows you to Digivolve into cards that you discard. What's really interesting about this list specifically, though, is that it actually focuses on deck milling and uses a bunch of the Beelzemon engine to speed up. So we see things like Dobermon from, like, I think this is BT8, who lets you trash through whenever he's deleted, and you can pull a card or a tamer back from the trash to your hand. We also see things like the Mist Memory Boost here to discard cards at the top of the deck, as well as 2 copies of Rival's Barrage just to pull back something useful in case you might need it, things like maybe a Dexmon or Fenriloogamon if you discard it. The deck also runs 4 copies of Analog Youth because it combos so well with Hearthstone, the level 5 here, the 3 copies right here. Hearthstone, once you get to level 5, you can at end of turn destroy him and draw some cards, as well as destroy Digimon on your opponent's side of the board. And because he has sources, you can rest the Analog Youth, hatch a new egg, gain some memory, and then start to build another stack in raising for the next turn. It's hard to see here, but these are 2 copies of the, I think it's BT9 Black Gatomon. It's the yellow-purple one that has Rush inherently. This deck card is included in the deck because most of the deck focuses on Dark Animal cards, which it is, and it also has the ability to be brought back using Fenriloogamon's effect. Whenever you Digivolve into this guy, you can bring back multiple Dark Animal or Sons of Chaos cards, and with this having Rush and Fenriloogamon having Alliance, you can potentially OTK with this deck very easily. And the last list we're going to take a look at today is going to be BloomLord. This deck I didn't really expect to see here because the Blossomon did get hit in the most recent updated restricted list. However, this deck is still doing really well for itself. We see the new cards from BT14 here in the Mimi Tamer, the Palmon, as well as the Togemon here, and these cards are all just great boons to the deck. The Palmon here is like a light Hydramon effect, where if one of your opponent's Digimon rests, they lose 2 memory, but that plus its inheritance ability allows you to reduce Digivolve costs alongside the Togemon. Togemon just lets you play Tamers for free, essentially, because the only Tamer in this deck is 3 costs, and it reduces the cost of Tamers by 3 whenever they're played once per turn. And the Mimi just functions as an extra search for the deck, right alongside the Palamon as well as the Lalamon that the deck already sees. I didn't mention it before, but we also see 2 copies of the Lilymon Ace in this deck because it has that counter effect to rest Digimon. And because lots of Digimon right now have the ability to unrest themselves, this effect is actually pretty useful. But outside of that, not much has really changed with the deck. Lots of cards we've seen before, things like the Sunflowermon, Pomumon, the really cheap cost of the Red Vegiemon, as well as the addition of the Sunflowermon from BT13. Things like the Cherrymon are going to be really important now just for a little bit of defense outside of your Lilymon. And then once you get to your upper end, it's going to be things we've seen before in BloomLord, Hydramon, as well as 2 copies of the Quartzmon. Interesting to note that this deck doesn't run any copies of the green training card. And instead it runs 4 copies of the Memory Boost. Honestly, I think because costs for this deck are so low to the ground, you probably value the search more than anything else. And so being able to look at those 4 cards, even if it's 1 more memory, because your Digivolve costs are a little bit lower, then maybe you can afford to do that. And so that's going to wrap up the first week of the BT14 Blast Ace Meta Report for Asia. If you guys have any questions about the decks, feel free to put those down in the comments below. Also, let me know what decks you guys are excited in seeing from this set. Oh yeah, one more thing before I get out of here. I mentioned before that I was going to change the icon for security control. Do you guys have any ideas what that icon should be? Put those down in the comments below as well, because I'm not really sure. I feel like Mastamon is too close to the Chaos Degrade's artwork, so that doesn't really work well. I want it to be able to stand alone from other cards, but also be very clear that it's not like a single Digimon. Anyways, folks, thanks as always for watching. I'm going to get out of here. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.